Okie dokie, what we got here is a rock pit on Tiger Mountain. One of the few that we do have on Tiger. They're few and far between. This one's called the Columnar pit. Many of you could probably guess why. It's got these nice straight columns, even though they're at an angle. That's because when the lava came up, it protruded up through the surface of the earth and cooled, laying down these different columns of basalt, different layers of basalt that are hard, but in between there are cracks, and so in those cracks water gets in there and plants and organisms and whatnot, and they start to break it down, especially water with the freeze and thaw properties of weathering, and you get these nice columns which are pretty beautiful in my opinion. Got a nice patch of redox reactions going on up there. We've got, you know, definitely some iron oxides in that basalt column there, or that area where the mineralization of that rock is high in iron, as it's high in iron in a lot of different rocks, as we're learning, because a lot of rocks will give off that red redox reaction. You can see the alders in here loving it because it's a pioneering species. Butterfly bush, invasive, loving it here. Cottonwood doing well. This, if you can imagine, even though it looks pretty rocky, it's pretty compacted under here because of all the work of having machinery in and out of here, and so it's packed down pretty good. And then so this ends up holding a lot of moisture, you know, especially in the winter, but also just throughout the year it'll continue to have moisture. Let's see if we can pull one of these guys up and look at the roots. I pointed one out before when we were over in the Raging, which is across from Deep Creek and the Raging River, when we were in the Kerrison unit. But here you go, you can see these nodules. These are white on here. Nodules all over the place, even along the mass of this taproot here. And these guys are just loving it. The alder's loving it, although not anymore because I've just pulled them out of the ground. But these are those nodules of those actinomycetes bacteria, or cyanobacterias that fix nitrogen. And so when they come in here and they blast this rock, it ends up, you know, if you can imagine, coming out to where I'm standing now, potentially, it ends up being this size material right here, which we call the 1 foot plus size material. Now what happens with this material then? It goes into the rock crusher, which is known as the jaw, and we have one right down here, luckily, because we've been crushing rock. And what they've been doing here also is turning some of this 4-inch material, which was done from the last crushing. The rock crusher was up here and made this big stockpile from that material, which came from that rock pit, crushed it into this material. Now we're taking this and crushing it down further into 1.5 inch, 1.25 inch material, which is then going to be great for surfacing. So this pit actually is connected to another pit that we're going to go see called the BB pit, which was just shot. It's the same vein of basalt, but it's up over this ridge, and we're going to go take a look at what they've been doing up there. Also, just to give you some bearings here, down this hill is basically Issaquah Hobart Road, and where it runs into Southeast Tiger Mountain Road. And hopefully we're gonna make it up to Poo Poo Point today and see what Mount Rainier looks like. I bet it's a spectacular view, and I'm sure there'll be a bunch of people up there. Okay folks, here we are at the BB pit. It's called the BB pit, I guess really for one reason. My old boss, his initials were BB, and this was one of the last projects that he worked on before he moved on down to the Green River watershed area. So this theoretically is the same line or the same formation of basalt that we saw in the Columnar pit just a second ago. However, we are about 500 or 600 feet higher, and so this basalt also is slightly different because of its elevation. It's been exposed more, potentially had different cooling properties when it was coming up through the surface of the earth, the crust, and then also has more had more weathering processes on it, plus the inclusion or intrusion of organics. It gives us this really nice brown, light brown tan rock. There is some gray basalt, obviously you can see here. That is a much harder material than the lighter brown colored material, and you see these large chunks here, and sometimes even chunks the size of, you know, a e-car, electric car. This is what size of material comes from the shot. Basically, this is the shot size, foot plus, like I've been talking about. That piece of equipment there is the driller, which drills the holes into the rock so that they can put the explosives down in there. And so what they'll do is they'll come in, start at the top, and start drilling. They'll do some test pits actually too, to see, you know, how hard the rock is and how much explosives they're going to need, because they don't want to overshoot, especially here. You'll go blowing rock down into that valley. There's a major stream that flows down there, Holder Creek, and then there's another smaller stream down there, and we have some reprod growing there from a sail that was cut about 10 years ago. So, oops, it's kind of in the shadows here now. The light is not hitting it too well, but we've got the top of the pit here. Some of that material that's blown out. Some of the material has just been crushed by the machinery as well, as you can see. But this stockpile here was created from the jaw that's down there by the Basaltamuch pit. This is the it's 4-inch material there. We don't have any surfacing 1.25-inch material here. They're using all the material from the basalt columnar pit for the surfacing. There used to be a huge pile of surfacing here when we shot this last for the long cut timber sale, and it has been since used, some of it on the Basaltamuch sale that we're on now. gonna walk around here. You know, this pit is variable. It's got a lot of nice solid veins of basalt, but then on the sides here you get a lot more kind of organic intrusions. And you know, I guess what I mean by that is like when this pit, or when the basalt was, lava was coming out of the surface of the earth, there were other things, you know, on the surface of the earth that it was intermixing with, and it looks like it's difficult to get back there, which is probably why they put all this material here, because the rock on this side is highly weathered, a lot of organic type stuff, material mixed in with some of the basalt, so it's not the best material to be working with, and so they put this pile here. Let's see, that's about all I have for here. Look across the way there, you can see a fresh cut, and I'm pretty sure that that is from that's the Snoqualmie Tree Farm. That's not our ownership, and that's Campbell Global Sale. And we got a little bit of a view of Tahoma, Mount Tahoma, Mount Rainier right there. Beautiful Mount Rainier. And we're gonna head up to Poo Poo Point and see what the view's like up there. Maybe make a couple more stops on the way. But here we have the BB pit, giving us this nice, highly weathered basalt that breaks down. One nice thing about this rock is it breaks down into these nice fines, as you can see, blowing all over the place now. But you know, you want in your rock a good mix of really hard material and some fine material to pack that hard stuff together. Otherwise you can lose a lot of that material from erosion.